Well, good morning. Excited to be back and excited to be working through your guys' dough show today. And I think just an awesome way to get things kicked off and started here in Class 1. And I think a top 5 that's very diverse and different in terms of type and kind. And I'll be honest, I think it is close here up top. This one that is going to go ahead and win, to me, I think that one's probably just more demanding. The moment she steps foot into the ring, I think she's stouter in terms of her skull. She's bigger in terms of her forearm. She's broader in terms of her chest. And then, to me, there's just more as you get on top of that particular doe, working right out of the backside of her blade and shoulder. She's more progressive in terms of her width. For me, I want to set her down just a shade right there in terms of her chine bone, and she's not as exotic or unique in terms of her depth of body from the top side of her chine to the base of her sternum as the one's coming next. But to me, she's just so hard to deny. She's the stoutest, she's the densest, she's the most opened up. She needs to go ahead and win. This one, if she can continue to do the right things for the young lady, I think can be an absolute bad cat. You want to talk about tall-shouldered, slick neck, jet level down her back, and that thing is so exotic in terms of how she presents herself from the side. And you get in, and she is skinny, she is green, she is raw, and she's immature. Well, she is awesome in terms of her shape and her texture, the way she feeds. She's big and broad over her loin. Her forerib design is absolutely awesome. You compare her to the one directly in front of her, she's just a little fragile at the surface. I don't think she's as sound up front in terms of the setback angle to her blade and knee, but I think a lot of quality, a lot of future within that particular doe. This one here coming next, I absolutely love. Down low in terms of this flex, cushion, and comfort. The setback angle to her knee is awesome. Her length and levelness of hip and where her tail head sits is beautiful, and all that correlates to her hind leg being so athletic and agile when we get out and go. She too paints the right image from the side in terms of height, the shoulder, or her neck ties of the apex of her blade. For me, though, you step around the front side of this particular doe, she's a little more just concaved right there to the base of her forerib. She'll get just a shot more out in terms of her elbow. She's probably just a little raw, green, and immature, and just not as busted open as you step back and study pin width right there through the seat of her pants as the two in front of her, but paints the right image. If she can come with just a shot more forerib, just a shot more there in the seat of her pants, I think he can get really, really close. Really like the shape, the freshness, the compositional correctness. The young lady's black doe here coming next. She too is just awesome from her mid-body forward in terms of the way she feeds out of the backside of her blade. She is wickedly tall-shouldered, skinny, skinny, skinny in terms of her neck. At the end of the day, she too just a shot washed out right there to the heel of her loin. She doesn't have the pin or just the punch and power. That doe coming at you is the blandest, the plainest, and the most closed out there to the base of her chest. You've got one that's highly presented, buddy. You do an awesome job getting her shown and presented. Just beautiful in terms of her build and her skeleton, her flex, her cushion, her comfort down low in terms of set and angle up front to her hind leg is really, really good. She's got to have more feature. She's got to have more width and bulk the whole way through if she's going to work up in this particular class. That goats on down the line just need to be changed in terms of balance and muscularity. If you guys would, good way to get things kicked off. Give them a nice round of applause.
Got a deep class over here on the sheep side that admittedly is a little tough, in my opinion, to put together. Lots of different shapes and sizes out here, and so I think depending on the person that's in the ring and what they're trying to look for, you could maybe line them up just a little bit differently. I get that our class winner maybe isn't everybody's flavor, but I think that sheep is unique. To me, he is the outlier of this group in terms of his silhouette. That is a really long, youthful-looking head and neck that sits high on top of the shortest blade. I think that sheep in the way that his forerib lays into his body is off the charts good. I like the sweep that he has back to his rear rib and flank, and that's a sheep that I think at first glance he doesn't look as woofy as some of those behind him, and I get that. He's probably the skinniest one of this lineup, but when you get right on top of that guy and you study the way he transitions from his shoulder blade into his mid-body and back to his pin bones, I think he is truly the most progressive. That is a really, really good shaping one. In a perfect world, we would just make him a little smoother. In particular, because he's one of the greener, skinnier ones of this lineup, he isn't perfect in his hip-loin hookup. I think that sheep needs to open up just a little bit more in his rib cage with some more maturity. But I read that one today to have just an absolutely insane amount of quality here from the side. He carries his head high. He manages everything from there back so good. Ultimately, I thought there was a trio of sheep that in terms of their neck set, in terms of their skeleton, fit me a little bit better. He did things the furthest reach reaching, in my opinion. The young lady's wether that comes in second probably is a little smoother as a product of being just a little bloomier from a condition standpoint. I thought relative to 3, he was bigger in his hip. I thought he had a better turn to his lower leg, and that helped his body weight distribution here from the side of Nickelmore. His skin is thin, his touch is nice, and one that I think does a nice job of getting that guy presented, and he emulates a lot of quality from the side. She gets out of him, we set him in motion, and to me, his flaws become a little more evident. I think that sheep is naturally a little deeper at the base of his forerib, got a little bit more on the front side of his shoulder than what I would term ideal, and when we get him out and go, he won't just pick his head up and carry himself in the same fashion as our class winner. He isn't as good in the texture and tone of his muscle shape either as what the sheep right ahead of him is, but I thought that one had just a little bit more when we got in behind him than the darker colored sheep that's going to come here in third. One in third is neat in terms of just stoutness of structure, and the quality of his feet and leg structure I think is way good. That's a sheep that to me, again, high-headed, his neck set and maturity pattern and how things fit together fits me more than the young lady sheep that comes in fourth. The reason you get slid down into third, Bud, is when we get to this viewpoint right here, I think that's a sheep that we got to have more turn to the base of his stifle to help him balance out. Of our initial trio, he's the flattest in terms of his forerib. He's the most closed up in his pin set. I think that's a sheep that has some really interesting parts, maybe just missing a few to go ahead and get around that top pair. If you like them to be crisp and shapely, the one here in 4 is probably as good as any. Young lady, that one's got a big old rib cage. He's got a monstrous back when you get right on top of him. Don't even have to pet that one. His pin bones are set wider, and he's got more right there through the seat of his britches than the one right ahead of you. For me, as we start to study him, whether he's parked or in motion, that sheep won't let his neck out of his shoulder as good. He tightens up on both ends of his skeleton. I read him one that from a growth curve and maturity pattern standpoint maybe isn't quite my speed, but I think that's one that you get a guy in here that's looking for power, he's at no shortage of it. Little closer decision between 5th and 6th here. I thought the sheep that finishes out our front line could prop up with a nice kind of look, runs uphill, good in his neck attachment. To me, he needs to be fixed right there in his rear pastern. Of our initial grouping, he was the flattest in his body and the blandest in his shape, but I thought he was more seamless in how he comes together here from the side than the young lady sheep in 6. Good class there. Let's put our hands together and congratulate those kids.
All right, Class 8 Natural Market Lambs is getting ready to head in the ring.
Congratulations, champion, Yorkshire American Hog, Savannah Hinton, reserve champion, London Dean.
All right, Class 8 Natural Market Lands is headed in the ring. We need Class 9 to come up to the holding area and get checked in. Class 9 Natural Market Lambs to the holding.
Class 3 breeding does. Class 3 breeding does. We need you up in the holding area. Final call, class 3, breeding does. Final call, class 3, breeding does.
Well, if this right here doesn't get you fired up, I said it yesterday, you probably need to buy a boat. This right here is wicked. It is insane, and it is spooky and scary. This top trio and this top 4 is absolutely wild, wacky, and different. But there was no hesitation. The moment the young man's doe stepped foot in the ring, that was my class winner. To me, that one is so hard to replicate from the side. To look like that in terms of height, the shoulder, build, and balance, where her neck ties, the way her blade ties within to her skeleton, her bend and flex up front is absolutely beautiful. And what I think is so awesome, it is poetry in motion. Not only does she look like that prop from the side with the wicked neat head, the short ear, the giant chest, and the giant forearm, and absolutely no sternum, but she looks the same in motion. And if you're asking ringside, what's it like under the hair? It's big, it's broad, it's awesome textured. She looks like she swallowed one of the whiskey barrels over there for a rib cage. I get where her critics will hit on her. She could be just a nickel longer right there in terms of her hip. But at the end of the day, I want to stand in backdrops with one that looks like that are built like that, and can move like that. I think very, very impressive. This paint doe coming in next is absolutely bad to the bone. You want to talk about rank up front in terms of her skull, in terms of her ear, in terms of her chest. That thing is absolutely wicked as you get right around the backside of her in terms of the shape, in terms of texture. For me, though, we ask these things, they get up and go in motion. She'll get just a little tight right here in the center of her back, and then we watch these things go right away. She'll fade and funnel right here to the backside of her pin, and she closes up too much right there at the backside of her hock. If we can pry that one open from her loin back, I think up front in terms of chest, forearm, skull, ear, and upper rib cage and shape, she can go ahead and be our class winner. But I think that top pair is very, very good. Young man's doe here. It's going to go ahead and be second. Buddy, she is absolutely drop dead gorgeous and sexy. She is tall shouldered, skinny necked, flat back, and I mean cat-like in motion. At the end of the day, I love her, man. I want a whole lot that looks like that. But you get right here and you put it in relation to the two right in front of her. She's the flattest and most concave right there to the base of her forerib, and she just doesn't have the same shape and texture. And I love how loose built she is, but she'll get just a little weird in terms of her top line when we ask her to get out and go in motion. If she can have the bulk, if she can have the width that the two directly in front of her do, her look, her build, her skeletal quality easily move her up in this particular class. Young lady, you probably brought a doe to Cheyenne that you thought was going to do pretty solid, but you run into a class I think is absolutely spooky and scary. This doe is very, very good. She is big and broad right there over her loin. She's big right there to the upper portion of her hip and pin set. She is really, really stout in terms of her just feature and denseness there to her lower skeleton. She's awfully proud apart and square right here in terms of her chest and knee. I think her head is absolutely beautiful. To me, though, she's the flattest right there to the seat of her pants. She's the flattest right there in terms of her forerib. And you step off and study these things from the side. She's not as tall-shouldered. She's not as exotic or just neat-looking as the ones in front, but I think very, very good. This doe right here, I think probably just from the side, just a little plain, just a little round, but you get your hands on her. She's tremendous in terms of her shape. The way that she feeds out of the backside of her blade is awesome. The way she feeds into her rib cage is absolutely beautiful. That one doesn't have the wild pieces, gets a little round, just gets a little frail. Really, really like your doe right here. Young lady and 6. That thing is just beautiful from the side in terms of the way she's built. She's jet level down her back. She ran out of feature. She ran out of width down low. Another one that I think is absolutely awesome in terms of build and in terms of skeleton. Another one that we just got to pry that one open just a shot more. And I thought does down the line, they just didn't have the wild pieces. They got to balance up just a little bit better from the side. But again, an awesome class. If you guys would, give those kids a real nice round of applause.
For the overall drive, we will bring first and seconds back.
All right, we have just a little bit of a delay as we wait for a showman. We're somewhat unique to some shows that we try to give every opportunity for those exhibitors to show their animal specifically, so please just be patient with us.
Well, without a doubt, on the sheep side of things, one of the deepest classes that we've had so far. In the same breath, I say that it's got some challenge. I don't know if there's one in this group that kind of came in, slapped me upside the head and said, here I am. I think there's a lot of differences in this class, and you got to decide what you're willing to accept, what you want to find. To me, ultimately, this top pair kind of surface, and I wish we could merge the two of them. Then I think we'd have that kind of knight in shining armor. This is a tough pair, tough class to work through. Ultimately, I think when you get this set parked here from the side, balance, quality, symmetry, youthfulness, that's where this pair needs to surface. And then I ask myself, between that pair, as I weigh back and forth in my head, where's the bigger difference? I think the young lady's class winner just eats the second place one for lunch, and that's why he gets to win. That's a sheep that right here, I'm not going to tell you he's perfect, but I think he exudes quality. His sternum and his body sit up in him where it needs to. I think he's got a stout, useful, correctly set hind leg, and I think the symmetry that he paints, while maybe isn't as tall-fronted and skinny-necked as our second place, is still very good. Again, the difference maker for me is when I get right on top of that pair, that is without question the wider built, rounder rib, bigger back, bigger pinned one that I think just has so much more than the one that comes here in second. I dig this one in second from the side. I think that if we could find a silhouette like that and merge it with the substance of our winner, then we've got our easy winner amongst this lineup, because versus our class winner, I like the direction that sheep runs relative to the ring surface. I like his longer neck and how it sits on top of his neater and tidier blade. The question you got to ask yourself, and it's tough for me because I'll give up some muscle, you get into this viewpoint here, and I think he is at a strong deficit in terms of shape of body, in terms of tone and mass up high, and right here from behind, he's probably the narrowest and flattest one of this entire grouping that we've got up here. But to me, the quality he has from the side at this viewpoint is why he gets to be our second place sheep. That's a nice pair. One that comes here in third, I think we give him a shot. A leg wool, and your perception would change just a little bit more. That's a good ribbed, good skin, good textured kind of a sheep when you get right on top of him. He's got more mass, more width of skeleton when you get in behind him, even than the one that beat him. The reason he's not in the top pair, to me, you take that flank wool out and you study natural underline progression. It doesn't go the direction I like it to. And regardless of the leg wool, to me, that's a sheep that needs a stronger rear pastern, a more attractive hind leg, and a squared leveler hip there to go ahead and make the switch. But I liked his length, his maturity pattern better than the one that comes next. I think we got a little fat steer coming here in fourth, one that can prop up here from the side. And if you talk about some kind of neat proportions, he does that to a high degree, not at a shortage of muscle, not at a shortage of power. To me, that is the quickest maturing sheep. If you look at his skull, his neck, his cannon bone, and how he carries himself in motion, that one's just not good enough looking for this particular judge, but I think that one's got a lot of good nonetheless. Crazy muscular sheep rounds out our top five, and that's why he gets to the front line, young lady. That one handles like a dream. He is big-backed, he is big-ended, and he is fresh and good compositionally, a little bit like the one in front of you. That one's just a little bit too conventional, in my opinion, when we start to get off to this viewpoint here, and probably still didn't come together as good as the sheep that beat you, but I like his muscle, I like his handle quality. That was a good class, but a tough group to assemble there. Let's put our hands together and congratulate all those kids.
We need class 4 breeding does to check in the holding area with Pam. Class 4 breeding does to check in the holding area with Pam. We need Bella Campbell to come up and check in for her class for the breeding doe show.
Good class here, and I think one that, although there's some differences, I think it fits and meshes together quite well in my mind. I thought the initial impression, young ladies know up front, hit the gate, and it's instantly, what's that one? She is so attractive and neat to look at here from the side in terms of just her height to shoulder and where her neck ties right there out of the apex of her blade. She's presented to the absolute nines, and then you go ahead, you get your hands on her, and that is one of the freshest, best touching ones. That is the most progressive in terms of her width. And then I think what really is the nail in the coffin and why she's got to win this particular class is you set these goats in motion. You watch her come at you. You watch her leave. And that one's just the most genuine. She's the squarest, the most pried apart from sternum, knee to the base of her tippy toe. And that thing leaves you. She's big and square and broad right there through the upper portion of her hip and pin set and carries that width and just genuine squareness there to the surface. I thought a very, very logical place to start. This one right here, propped up from the side, I absolutely love. She is jet level down her back. She's beautiful in terms of her underlying progression. I thought another one that was really good as you go ahead and get right here and talk about body shape, talk about spread, and she is just ginormous in terms of her chest, but at the same token, she'll get just a little out right there in terms of her elbow. You watch that one go right away, and to me, she'll close up just a shot right there at the base of her skeleton. I thought a little longer eared, just not as wild and exotic as the one that wins, but I think that one's really, really high quality. This thing right here, I absolutely love. She is a stout mug, giant chested, giant form, giant backed, round bodied one. For me, though, she gets just a little coarse and plain right there to the base of her neck. And to me, she's a little shorter coupled. And I think all that correlates when you ask the goats to go in motion. She's a little straight and a little vertical off either end. I want to make her square. I want to make her more genuine as she hits her rear foot to the surface going right away. But I think in terms of just skull, ear, form, and genuine horsepower up front, that goat's really, really good. Drop dead gorgeous as this one right here. You want to talk about tall shoulders, skinny necked, and flat back. Beautiful in terms of her length of hip and set right there to her hind leg. Push comes to shove. You get right here, got to have more forerib, got to bust that one open right there to the base of her chest and knee. But I think absolutely beautiful in terms of her build and her skeleton. Opposite end of the spectrum with the young lady's paint doe right here. Bold, shapely, tremendously round body. This thing is ginormous right here to the upper portion of her hip and her pin set. At the end of the day, she just doesn't proportion good enough as we get right here. Carpet doesn't match the drape. It's got to have more feature down low to match the extra bulk, to match the extra boldness she's got up high. But I love her muscularity. Just wish we could stouten her up down low. These goats over here just need more muscle or just got to balance up just a little bit better. If you guys would, give them a nice round of applause.
All right, we need Class 10 natural market lambs to check in the holding area. Class 10 natural market lambs to check in the holding area. Class 5 breeding does. We need you to check in the holding area. Class 5 breeding does. Check in the holding area. Like to take a minute to thank some of our volunteers that have made this show possible. This is year 5, and we've got a great set of industry leaders and members that help in all these species. Our board of directors, Pam Freeman is the chairman, Jefferson Keller is the vice chairman, Scott Vetter, Dylan Freeman, Mandy Weber, Justin West, Krisha Geffert, and Whitney Darr. I'd also like to thank the Sheep and Goat Subcommittee, who helps select judges and make recommendations to provide additional opportunity for these young kids to have a chance to show different things. Sheep and Goats Subcommittee, Dylan Freeman is the chair, Clay Elliott, Jason Simpson, Justin Nathan, Caden Hubbard, Bobby Strecker, Sydney Beatty, Bruce Bauman, Pam Freeman, Braxton Olson, Mike Frink, and Chase Taylor. We have some great supporters of our show here in Cheyenne. Pine Bluffs Distilling has been a big supporter for the last 5 years. Not only have they donated barrels for prizes, we get to pick a barrel that they label with our logo, Cheyenne at Livestock Expo Whiskey. They're serving stuff over there. Go visit them at the Pine Bluffs Distilling tent. Get yourself a drink. They're huge supporters of this event, and we really appreciate them. All right. We need Class 5 breeding does to come check in. We're still missing JC Pratt and Heidi Hutchinson. If you're wondering where we're at throughout the day today on the shows, you can follow the live stream. Ringside Live is doing the live streaming for us. It'll be live on Facebook, live on YouTube. You can go to their website. There's some QR codes on their banners that are hanging on the side of the show ring. So if you're wondering where we're at in the show today and you're in the back of the barn, just pull that up. It should tell you where we're at in each of our classes. You can also send that to anybody back home that's wanting to watch the show.
I think another good class of blue sheep here. Really, this top trio, I think, are exceptionally good. Ultimately, I think there's a pair of them that just hit me a little harder in terms of their look, in terms of their presence. I think they handle their skeleton a little bit better. Amongst that pair, the young lady sheep that's going to win the class, I think just has a little bit more punch to him. That's a sheep that if we could just settle him down right there in his tailhead ever so slightly, I think that corrects him. She gets him parked right here, and I think at this stage of the game, that guy looks youthful. He runs uphill. He's shallow where he needs to be. He's deep where he needs to be. I think that's a sheep that when you get on top of him, you start comparing him to the one right behind him. He's got more foundational width. That lays the groundwork for that guy to have an awesome turn and shape to his forerib. He's bigger in his back. He's bigger when you step in behind him. I think a really nice one to go ahead and start us off. The young lady sheep in second. I love that thing in terms of how he handles his structure and motion. That one is tall fronted. That one is dense and correct at his foundation. He probably handles his hip just a little better even than what our class winner does. That's a sheep that I think when you get off to this viewpoint here and you start to study, again, naturally where his forerib sits into his outline because of the turn of it, he's not as impressive. You get on top of him, that's a sheep that closes up more at the top of his body cavity, and because of that, he's not as good right there in his blade, right there in his loin, and when you get in behind him. But I thought he was better in terms of his structure. I thought he ran uphill a little better than the one that's going to come in 3. This is the power sheep of the group, no doubt. This thing is big-ribbed. He is big-backed and monstrous when you get in behind him. That's a sheep that, in my opinion, we need to relax on both ends of his skeleton. He'll rock forward a little more in his blade and knee. He's tighter in his rear pastern. We'd probably change his attitude just a little bit to go along with it. That's a sheep that, for me, needs to be a little better at the ground, a little neater and tidier up front if we're going to tide all that substance and power. He's doing a great job hanging with it here. That's a stout one to come in 3rd. Sheep that comes in 4, I like him in terms of his skin and his texture. That one's lean and probably is just a little more up and out even than the one right ahead of him. Gets a little too gangly looking for me. We got to stouten his feature. We got to open him up. We got to piece him together a little more seamless here from the side, but I like his length of mid-body and the direction he runs up front. This is a sheep that you get him parked, and he's kind of a chunky, boxy made one that's got some power to him. At the same time, gets a little deeper and plainer at the front part of his body, gets a little blander when you lay your hands on that one because he's pushing probably the most over his body wall of anything in this lineup, but I thought his foundational width, his rib shape needed to be up here at the front in a really good class. That was a fun group to work through. Again, let's congratulate all those kids. Nice job. Nice job, guys.
All right, congratulations to our Class 9 Natural Market Lamb exhibitors. We have Class 10 coming in the ring. We'll need those first and seconds back out of those first 4 classes for the Natural Market Lamb Drive. We also need Class 5 of the breeding does to check in the holding area. We still need Heidi Hutchinson to come check in the holding area for Class 5 of the breeding does. Oh, she's a scratch.
This is really tough top pair in my mind because I like both these goats. This is probably the toughest class we've had. I just didn't think maybe one just ran out here and said, hey, pick me, I'm your class winner. But I think some very interesting pieces and parts are some goats that have some things about them I really like, and then some things I want to change. And this top pair is really, really different. And so I'm going to tell you where my head's at, why I did the things that I did. This one from the side is better built than the one directly behind her. She is taller shouldered. She's neater in terms of where her neck ties at the apex of her blade. She's better in terms of her design and balance from the side, in terms of where her sternum sits in relation to her underlying progression. To me, she's longer. She's leveler out of her hip. And you get your hands on this one, and boys, it's surprising. That thing is probably about as good a touching of one that's come to the ring to this particular point. Her body shape is absolutely beautiful and awesome. Push comes to shove, and I get it. She's blown away from being a bona fide class winner in my mind. If she's got more features feature down low, then I don't ever question it because she's sounder than the 1 and 2. She's better looking than the 1 and 2. And to me, she is more appropriate from her loin back in terms of the shape of her pin, where her tail head sits, and the range of motion out of her hind leg. And I get it. We got to have more bone, but I still thought there was more positives in that go. This thing from her loin forward is absolutely awesome. You want to talk about stout skulled, awesome ear, giant chested, and a big front foot and forearm. She's got it, and I love that about her. You get right here, though, she's a little weird in terms of the way her hips constructed, and to be honest, she's a little Angus heifer built behind. She's a little hatchety in terms of the way she feeds right there to the seat of her pants, and you ask these things to go in motion. She rolls out of her front end, gets a little low front end. She'll get just a little weird and push and plant on the outside of her hoof wall going right away. If we can change this doe structurally, and if we can make her balance better from the side in terms of the way her hip and lower leg and stifle lay within to her skeleton, her skull, her ear, her chest, her feature, her forearm are just what I want. I just thought there was too many negatives to go ahead and label her the class winner, but it's really, really close and tight, and I definitely would listen to an argument. Again, got to change that one from her loin back. This goat right here is one that probably grew on me the longer we're out here. Young lady gets her parked and propped up from the side, and that thing is as tall-shouldered, waspy, and wild-looking as anything that's come to the ring to this particular point, and I love that about her. She's got big feet. She's got a big forearm. Her feet move and motor in the right direction. I like the shape. She didn't have the extra hair, the extra fluff the others do, but to me, the shape of her pin, the shape there to her stifle and her lower leg is really, really good. At the end of the day, she's too flat. She's too closed up. We got to have more punch and power, and you can read it all as she comes right at you in terms of her chest, in terms of the length of her ear and the way her jaw lays within to her skeleton. We can change that. I love her build, and I love her balance. Another one from the side that I think is absolutely incredible, the front portion of this thing's skeleton from her mid-rib forward is beautiful. That is a gigantic form, skinny neck, and an awesome head. And I think the way that her upper rib cage lays within to her skeleton is very, very good. She just funnels way too much. As we step right here, we got to pry that one open in terms of her loin and her pin. We got to make that one more secure in terms of the way her rear hock and foot hit the surface. But again, her mid-rib forward, absolutely deadly. This one's challenging for me because there's times I get a view of young ladies doing 5, and I absolutely love. She is big, big, big in terms of feature and substance down low. And you get in and get your hands on her. Awesome shape, really good in terms of the way her foreribs designed. You get right here, though. I thought she was the most off and blandest and plainest from the side. She's the deepest bodied one. And then you step right here. I thought just a little deep and just a little generic in terms of the way the base of her neck tied within to her skeleton and the way that her sternum set right there on the front side of her skeleton. But again, feature just in terms of body shape and touch, really, really good. Goats on down the line, all of them. Just got to power them up, give them more shape, give them more muscle, but a really nice and challenging class. You guys would give them a nice round of applause.
All right, we need class 6 to be checked in the holding area for breeding does. We're still missing Talissa Tanigan and Jamie Gitlin. All right, we need our first and seconds of the natural market lambs to check in the holding area for the natural market lamb drive. Silas Hartman, we're missing your first place. Then we'll move into our market U, first class of market U's. So get those market U's starting to make their way up here to the holding area.
Here in our heavyweight class, the natural color division, we got some big sheep out here, and I'm probably one of the different minds that thinks we're probably at a stage where we show these things way too big and way too old. I like sheep that look youthful. I like sheep that are compositionally right relative to where they're at in their stage of maturity. On top of the things we've talked about in regards to skeleton, in regards to pattern, this is a tough class to put together because there's, again, a lot of different shapes and sizes, and I don't know if there's that came out and did it all. I thought this pair of sheep kind of blended all those things together because they look a little more youthful in their rib cage and their body, and yet still do it with some substance, still do it with some quality. The darker fibered sheep that's going to win the class, you get him parked, and I think that's his best look because to me, that sheep can put together a nice silhouette here from the side. His forerib sits up in him neat and tidy the way it's supposed to. He gets deeper back to his flank versus the one that's going to come right behind him. The way that he's built out of his tail head and right there through the base of his leg probably helps his balance here from the side. And then to go on top of that, that is a sheep that is awesome in the just openness to his rib cage. He is round and bold. That facilitates the right kind of spread when you get on top of him. He maybe isn't quite as hard to the touch as the one right behind him. I wish that sheep, when we turn him loose, would just carry himself a little better. He's kind of a knothead and wants to duck down in terms of his head and neck. If you watch his spine and the comfort level of it, how he uses his hip and hind leg, I think that sheep's build quality is still very good. I like this one here in second when you get your hands on him better than our class winner young lady. His hide's a little thinner. He is crisper and better in the shape that he's got right there behind his blade, and I appreciate that. Relative to the one that sits behind you, I think this sheep's a little more juvenile in terms of his head, his neck, and his body shape. I think he balances up plenty good here from the side. We turn him loose, and that sheep gets a little forward in his blade, a little tighter in his spine. More importantly, the reason you get beat here at this top pair. So when I get in behind him, that sheep probably progresses the wrong way, in my opinion. I need to open him up here around his dock and make him just a little wider from behind to match the horsepower of the one that beats you. But I think a really nice sheep to come in second that you do an excellent job getting presented. Probably a day where the one in third here could have slid up the line. That one's stout at his foundation. He's big and burly in his rib, and when you get in behind him, no question that that guy's got power. And I still think relative to the maturity he reads with, this young man's done a great job of keeping him together. His skin is good. His presentation is elite. To me, that's a wether that in terms of his skull, his neck, and the depth from his chine to his chest reads a little bit too far gone, in my personal opinion. I'd also like to change him right out of his dock and how he handles his rear skeleton. If we could just go back in time, I think that's a sheep that rivals our top pair. I still thought he had enough good to go ahead and beat the two that we get here on the front line, because the 1 and 4 from the side gives me fits. He does some things I think are very unique in this lineup. That one is really, really good in terms of his underlying progression. He runs uphill very correctly. The problem is, as we get into our heavyweight class here at the Cheyenne Livestock Expo, you get underneath that guy, you study the turn to his body and how he comes back to his pin bones. There's just not enough manpower there in our heavyweight class. I need to make that guy more opened up. I need to make him look more like a heavyweight to play, because right here, we could do a lot of things with that one. I thought the sheep that rounded out our top 5, another one of those that I think a few weeks ago could have played a little higher. That one's burly and dense at his foundation. He's correct in terms of the angles of his skeleton. That's one that I think maturity's starting to take its toll. He's getting a little deeper from the top of his scapula to the floor of his chest. I get right here to this rear 3/4, and I study the way he rolls out of his spine and the cover that he works over his body wall. I think that one's starting to read just a little bit past 12 o'clock, but I think a good sheep nonetheless to hit the end of our front line here. Good heavyweight class. Let's put our hands together for him.
I think a challenging top pair over here in our doe ring because I like both these goats, but I think they both need to be managed and changed in a few areas. And I think it's both up front on both of these goats in terms of maybe some structure, some skeletal issues, and maybe just in terms of the way things are built through the front portion of their skeleton and body. At the end of the day, to me, this doe, as we ask them to get out and go, and sticking to the guns of what we've done, I think is sounder and more flexible. I think that's because she's square, she's more appropriate in terms of the way that her upper hip and rump are put together, and that correlates to her hind leg set, her ability to get out, reach, and flex and go. She's flat back. She's good in terms of her shape. She's not as overwhelming in terms of body and muscle as the one that's going to go ahead and sit in second, but to me, I think she's stouter in terms of her skull. She's broader in terms of her ears. She's got more feature down low, and although I think she's plainer up front in terms of the base and the crest of her neck, she's plainer as we step around the front side and study her right there to the base of her chest and sternum, and she'll splay and she'll toe out just a shade up front. I still find that one sounder. I still find her to balance up and be square and more appropriate from her loin back, and in terms of the way her hind leg hits the surface, that's why she needs to go ahead and win this class. If you just want to step in and study him right here, there's my class winner. A giant in terms of her back, round in terms of her body. That is a gigantic upper hip and pin set. She is so just pried apart and giant in terms of her chest. To me, though, we ask these things to get out and go in motion. She gets a little lower set in terms of her shoulder. She's the most vertical and upright of the initial top trio of does. If we can relax her in terms of her angle, her blade and knee, give her just a shot more forerib, make her not so round in terms of her upper pin, and just tie her blade and arm right there into her skeleton just a little bit better. From the side, she is beautiful underline. She's got the big chest, the big body, the big upper pin. Want to make her taller shouldered, want to make her just a little sounder in motion. Young lady's goat that's going to go ahead and sit here in 3. You've got you a dang nice doe. I think in terms of basics and skeleton, that thing is good. Tall shouldered, where her sternum is set within her skeleton, is absolutely awesome. She presents herself extremely shallow from the side. That thing is jet level down her back, from the back side of her blade to where her tail head sits right there at the upper portion of her hip and pin set. At the end of the day, she's just a little plainer, just a little more closed up. As we study her at the surface, we need to open her up in terms of her chest. Just need to give her a shout more forerib and shape. But I think this view right here, in terms of just build, in terms of skeleton, comfort, and flexibility, I thought you brought one that was really, really high quality. I think similar story can be said for the young lady's doe here coming next. In terms of from the side of underline and top line comforts and security, really, really good. To me, though, I think this doe is probably just a little rounder in terms of the way she's built. Up front, in terms of her blade, a little more concave. Right there at the upper portion of her rib cage, I didn't think she had the same shape and texture. She's maybe just a little off and dingy in terms of her hair coat. I don't think that helps her. But from the side, good underlined and sound structured. Doe here that's going to round out her top 5. She's got a big forearm and a big rear foot. She's got a really round body laid within to her. To me, though, she's a little straight up front. She'll get just a little short, just a little steep there out of her hip. I didn't find her just as neat looking right there ahead of her blade as the 4 directly in front of her. But in terms of feature, in terms of body and width, I thought very, very good. Goats on down the line. Just need just a few more, just wow factor, a little more feature, and a little more muscle. Really challenging class. If you guys would, give a nice round of applause.
All right, class 6 of the breeding does is going in the ring. So we need class 7 to check in the holding area with Pam. We've got our natural market lamb division drive in the ring now. So we need class 11, our first class of market ewes, to check in the holding area. Class 11 market ewes, check in the holding area.
Well, a fun natural color division to work through, and one that certainly made me work today just in terms of thought process. There was a ton of variety in this class and a ton of good amongst all of these classes. I guess just trying to find ones that fit into the mold, and sometimes that can get difficult if you don't have just that cookie cutter in a class. I got to sit back and ask myself, where am I willing to stand on some of these things? And so that's what made this division tough, but the quality also did that. So my hats off to these young people on bringing us a nice set. Not to take anything away from our pair of lightweight sheep. I think those both have a bright future ahead of them. But I thought our second class is where things in this division really started to heat up. And still, what I would consider at this stage of the game, some lightweight sheep. But I think the one that wins that class does some pretty unique stuff. From his hip forward, that's how I like him to be built. That one is sappy in his flank and neat in his sternum. His neck set is high and tidy, and he carries himself like a proud, confident kind of a show sheep. We talked in class. He's pretty skinny still and probably doesn't just bulk up with some of those that sit behind him. And because of where he sits from a condition standpoint, I just like to fix him right there and how his loin ties into his hip, level him from his jump muscle out to his dock. But I think his silhouette is way, way good, and a sheep that has an awfully bright future ahead of him. That's a good one. And second over there, probably a little more seamless. At the same time, didn't think he pushed the envelope as far. This was a tough class to work through, and I thought that was a nice pair, even though they're a little different, that came to the forefront. This weather, when we get him stopped, I think has some good to him. That's one of the stoutest, densest, widest, biggest ribbed ones in this entire division. He's got an awesome turn to his forerib, and that facilitates one of the best spreads that we've seen all day out of his blade and back to his pin bones. Like in class we discussed, that's a sheep that when we turn him loose bothers me just a little bit. I read him to be a little rounder in his shoulder. I wish that sheep would take his head and pull it out of his neck just a little bit better and just maintain his balance and motion as good as what he can do when we get him parked. That's where the second place has him beat. Have to make the call if that one's just opened up and manly enough here at the Cheyenne Livestock Expo today to go ahead and get around that one. But that was a fun pair to work through. Like this pair a great deal as well. And the sheep that wins that class, like we talked, when we turn him loose, and even when he gets parked here, he'll get just a little high there in his tailhead. And that bothers me just a little bit. But I think at this stage of the game, that one is very unique in the sense that he is short about his blade. He is as good and shallow and neat in his body cavity and his sternum as you could make one. He's got a real youthful looking head and neck that comes high out of the top of his shoulder. I love the way that he's built in his lower skeleton. He's got the right bend to his knee and front foot. He's got a stout, durable, useful hind leg, and I think when she gets that guy parked, he paints a really nice image. Is he the burliest one when you get right on top of him? Probably not. He's hard and athletic in his shape. He could be just a little bigger right here and right there through his twist compared to a couple others, but I think that's a sheep that very exotic looking when you get off to the side and you just study that one's outline. Sheep that comes in two, love that thing's skeleton. His lower foundation is awesome. Again, one of those that gets a little flatter, little blander in terms of his shape. Good heavyweight pair as well. A sheep that, again, we get him parked, like a lot of things about him. His rib cage is as wild and opened up as any. A sheep that when we turn him loose, I need his neck and his blade maybe to allow him to come together better. I think relative to some of those ahead of him, you could obviously argue that he's getting just a little chubbier as you take him over his body wall and right here around his tailhead maybe than for my liking. That's where that second place sheep is better. He's harder touching. He's leaner and fresher over his rib cage. Picked on him in a couple balance features and need him to be just equipped with a little more horsepower from behind. Fun division to work through. Again, there's some variety out here, and you can pick your flavor if you're the one out here working through them. We're going to bring 2 or 3 of them actually out of this division. Dylan tells me I can bring some more back if we need to get our top 5 later today. Put your hands together for these kids. Great natural division. I'll go show you my favorites.
We need Talissa and Elizabeth to please check in the holding area. All right, we've got Class 11 market use headed in the ring. We need Class 12, market use to come to the holding area and check in with Colton.
I think it's a challenging class, but in my mind, it never really wavered from the one that we were going to start. I thought the real decision was right there in 2 and 3. And I thought the young lady's blonde-headed doe, she came in, she hit me pretty hard initially. That thing's just stout and grizzly in terms of her build. That's a big, stout, broad mug. Her chest is big. Her feet down low are ginormous, and they work in the right direction. I think she's square. She's more genuine. She's sounder and more flexible than the 2 does directly behind her. Up front's where I want to change her. She's a little throaty there in terms of her throat latch. She's getting just a little plain right there to the base and the crest of her neck. But at the same token, I think she's so hard to deny in terms of this feature and being that stout, that bold, and opened up, and still awesome in terms of balance, sound, and flex when we ask them to get out and go. That's a logical place to start. Like I said, decision was right here between 2 and 3, and I think both these goats are similar. They both have got to have just a shot more feature. They both have got to be just a shot more opened up in terms of pin and going right away at the surface. But I thought the young lady's doe here that's going to go ahead and sit in second, I thought was more genuine in terms of her shape right there out of the backside of her blade and shoulder. I thought she was rounder in terms of her body, although she's probably needs a shot more feature and bone down low. I thought it matched the shot better than this doe. More importantly, you get right here and just study hip hock the ground. She's square and more genuine. You ask these things to get out and go. I think her hind leg hits the surface with more comfort and just security, and that's why she needs to go ahead and win. This doe right here, I love her up front. Her chest is a country mile wide. She's tucked up right there in terms of her chest and sternum, round in terms of her body. She'll fade and funnel right there in terms of her pin. She's just a shot frail in terms of forearm and front foot, and then you watch that one go away. She's too frail in terms of her rear leg. She'll sit and plant right there on the outside of her hoof wall. If we could square her up, give her more feature, and then I think it's a no-brainer for me to work her up and maybe gets close right there within to the top pair. I think the basics in this doe are good. She's sound, she's flexible, good built and attractive, doesn't have the extras. To me, she's just a little plainer in terms of her blade, just a little flatter in terms of her forerib. This doe right here that's going to round out our top 5, I think she's got real interesting pieces. She is real slick and neat looking up front. In terms of her height, the shoulder, in terms of her length, the neck, her balance there, in terms of her top line. To me, she's a little straight up front in terms of her blade and knee, just a little rounder built out of her hip, just a little flatter right there in terms of her forerib. I thought goats on down the line were really good, deep competitive class. Those ones just need to be just a shot neater looking and just be a shot better balance. If you guys would, give them a nice round of applause.
All right, Class 12, market use, please come to the holding area and check in.
First class in our Market U division. I thought we had kind of a top pair to surface. One that wins the class, runs uphill a little better, keeps her lower body symmetry more correct as we turn them loose. And then on top of that, even if she isn't as wide right behind her blade, I think that one's shape and tone to her muscle system's just a little better than the one that's going to come in second. I like the posture of this used hind leg just a little better. I think one that when you get on top of them probably does read with more width and spread all the way down her back and out to her dock. At the same time, at this stage of her maturity, a little blander to the touch, a little longer and deeper about her blade, and that's what gets gets her beat here in a close decision. I thought the ewe that came next had a ton of muscle, really a high cut ability, kind of sheep in terms of tone, in terms of leanness, one that doesn't balance up as good as the top pair, but I thought just a little longer about her rump. That allows her to use her hind leg a little better than the one that's going to round out the class. That again, no shortage of muscle here. Got to change her rear skeleton to go ahead and work her up higher in this group though.
All right, let's get caught up on some division winners here. In our natural market lamb division, our champion natural went to Dally Horrocks with her first out of Class 9. Second, or reserve champion natural market lamb, was Addie Cortez out of Class 9. And our third in that natural division out of Class 7 was Silas Hartman. We need Class 8 of our breeding does to come over and check in the holding area. Class 8 breeding does. We need Porter Winden. Porter Winden, you need to come up and check in for your new class. Porter Winden. Class 8 breeding does, please come to the holding area and check in. Class 8. After we do Class 8, we will do our top 5 breeding does. So we need those first and seconds to be getting ready for the grand drive of the breeding does. Class 12 of the market ewes is heading in the ring. Class 12 market ewes is heading in the ring. We need Class 13 market ewes to come to the holding area and check in. Class 13 market ewes to the holding area and check in. Like to take a second to thank some of our sponsors for this year's event. We've got Tallgrass Energy as a grand champion sponsor. Visit Cheyenne, Pine Bluffs Distilling, Cheyenne Kubota, Tenco LLC, Equipment Share. Those are our grand champion sponsors for this year's event. Our reserve champion sponsors, we've got Stock Show Secrets, ADM Showtech, Not only is Showtech a huge sponsor of the show, but we've got Krisha Gefford over there running the hogs. So we really appreciate her help getting us lined out on the hog show. And we need our Class 13 market ewes to come and check in the holding area. Class 13 market ewes checking in the holding area. Class 8 breeding does needs to be checked in the holding area. Class 8 breeding does checked in the holding area.
Well, this is pretty good. This is pretty all right, if you ask me. And I think it's tough. I think it's challenging because between these four does, I think they're all very, very different. And so I'm sure there's going to be lots of opinions ringside on which one they like, and that's okay. I'm the guy in the ring today, so my opinion matters. And guess what? It's just one opinion on one day. I'm sure things could shake out differently on a different day. I think as we step back and we study these things and we talk about how they're all different, I think the young man's offside shoulder Cape doe, to me, she combines the three does directly behind her in the one package. And I get it, she's not perfect, but none of these are. This thing right here, when she hit the ring, that is a stout melon. That is a short ear. Her forearm and her front foot is absolutely ginormous. You can get around the front side where they're in the extra funky twine and hair, study her toe spread, study the depth of her heel. That thing's got a ginormous kind of a front foot. She's jet level as you study her right here down her back. I think her proportions, her balance are so good. You watch these go. Of all these goats, she's the most genuine. As she comes right at you, she stays the squarest from the sternum to her knee to the base of her tippy toe. She does the same as she leaves you. If I'm going to get critical on her and I'm going to throw stones at one that I really like, it is right there at the base of her forerib. If we could just make that just a shot bolder, just a shot rounder, I'd probably never waver. But like I said, they all got problems. I think she encompasses all the goats behind her into one package. This goat right here, I absolutely love, young lady, but she's kind of got a little bit of an attitude problem, and that doesn't help you in a tough class. But you want to talk about stout, robust, round-bodied, giant back, giant pinned, and really, really awesome touching and big muscle does. This thing right here does it, and from the side, man, I think it's still really, really good. I get where critics will pick on her. She ain't the waspy-looking one like the two behind her. And she probably gets just a little rounder right there in terms of her hip, but she's stouter in terms of her mug. She's rounder in terms of her body. That one is more genuine than the two does directly behind her. Again, if we can make that one a little square in terms of the way her hip's constructed, give her a better attitude, and maybe make her just a little waspier looking up front, I'm running with that one all day. I don't care what's coming in Class 8. Young lady still right here, this one hits the gates, and boy, you get fired up. You want to talk about the slick neck, the flat back, and the kitty cat hind leg, this thing right here's got it. Push comes to shove, it's all right here. It tells you the story. She's long-eared, she's a little fragile in terms of her head, and then that tells you that one doesn't have the shape, that one doesn't have the body, has a two directly in front of her. But to me, she's more aggressive in terms of her shape comparative to the doe directly behind her. She's rounder in terms of her forerib. I think you get right here, she's more genuine and square in terms of her hind leg and the way it hits the surface. But again, we got to make that one just stouter mugged, shorter eared, and just more aggressive in terms of her body shape. And she's protruding just a little bit right there through her breastplate comparative to the two directly in front of her, but waspy looking and awesome build. Excuse me. This doe coming right here in fourth. Again, initial impression, I think similar story to the doe directly in front of her. She's got big feet down low, waspy and wild looking. I absolutely love her head. It's mean and it's rank, but I don't think it tells the story. You step back and you want to study all those as they sit along the three-quarter view. That one's the flattest in terms of her body, and to me, she's just a little sickle hawk. She goes right away. She'll pull in there at her hock. We got to make that goat more genuine. I love her neck. I love her skull. I love her feature. I love her pin, but she is the most concave. She's the flattest in terms of her body. That's the least genuine one going away. Got to make her square. Got to make her more sound. This goat right here, young lady, you probably would have had a class winner and a lot of other classes because I think this thing's really, really good. You want to talk about really big back, really round body? To me, though, she's probably just the plainest one of the initial top five. She'll want to close and funnel right there in terms of her pin. She didn't have the feature. She didn't have the wow factor as the ones in front of them. Really like your goat, young lady. You run into an absolute screamer of her class. I think that one's awesome in terms of build and balance from the side. She's flat back. She's big pin. She's juicy behind. To me, she's too straight up front. She didn't have the extra pizzazz and waz. This goat right here is drop dead gorgeous and sexy. She needs more muscle. Same story all down the line. If you guys would, give him a nice round of applause.
Real good class of market ewes here. I thought the depth of quality was off the charts good and kind of boiled it down to this top pair. I think it's really, really close between them. Ultimately, the young lady's blue ewe, to me, in terms of just head carriage and how she conducts herself in motion, how she naturally manages her top line suits me a little bit better. I think that one reads with a crap load of quality when you get here to the side. That thing is so tall fronted. She is so good in the way that her neck and her shoulder tie together. I think that thing's top line is insanely good. You get off to this view viewpoint here, and to me, she paints the right kind of image. The question mark you have to ask yourself is when you get right here, is she as aggressive right there through the bottom side of her forerib as what the 1 and 2 is? That's the thing you have to decide, because this one here, in terms of the spread to her back, the roll to her body cavity is so good. I think that one, in terms of getting one presented and shown and really hiding some of her flaws, young man, you do as good a job as anybody that's come through the ring today. The challenge for me on that one is as we turn them loose in their natural state, that one gets just a little easy in her spine. She's not as good in the way that her neck ties into her blade. She's not as correct in terms of how her symmetry stays together. But when you do that right there, I think that's what keeps that pair close. Merge those two together, and we got a runaway winner. Regardless, I think a really close top pair. This one here, when you get your hands on them, there's not many better than this young lady right here. That thing is busted open. She is wide and stout and shapely in terms of her rack muscle, as good in terms of her edge as anything. The problem and why you get sorted into third here in a tough class is when we turn them loose, your ewes just not quite as good in her skeleton. She gets a little lower in the way her neck ties into her blade, wants to tighten in her spine, gets a little more rigid in how she handles that rear leg in motion. You do an excellent job getting that one presented, and she's as muscular and powerful as any. One that comes here in 4, I probably like her opposite a little better in motion than I do when you get her stopped. That one's intriguing in terms of stoutness of feature and coloration. I think she's awesome in the front part of her skeleton when you turn them loose, carries her head high and confident. That's one that when we get here to the side, loses her balance a little bit, a touch deeper there at the base of her shoulder, gets off in the way her loin ties into her hip and a little shorter about her rump. More importantly, of this initial grouping, she's just the plainest. When I get my hands on her and pushing the most cover over her body wall here in this Market U division, that one needs to be toned up and freshened up a little bit more. I like the length and extension hip forward to the young lady's blue ewe that rounds out the class. She probably mirrors some of those ahead of you a little bit better than the one that the young lady in front of you has, just in terms of her ability to run uphill, the way her neck sets into her blade, and then the tone and shape she's got when I get my hands on her. Little different story. We got to change yours there in the build of her rear skeleton to make a switch. She gets just a little weaker on those rear pasterns. You can see her starting to lock that hock into place just a little bit more than what I would term ideal, but you do an excellent job getting one of the best 5th place animals we've seen so far shown today. Still got some good ones over here. I visited with those kiddos a little bit about what I liked and what we'd change. Put your hands together for an awesome class.
All right, we need our first and second breeding does from those first 7 classes to check in with Pam. First and seconds to go check in with Pam. We're about to bring in class 13 market ewes, so we need class 14 to come to the holding area and check in. As we get closer here and prepared to select our top 5 breeding does, I want to give out a shout out to some of our sponsors that have sponsored some of these prizes. Obviously, top 5 will get banners. The Showtimes has graciously provided us with banners for the Supreme and Reserve Doe. We also have a bottle for the parents of the champion and reserve champion breeding doe of the Cheyenne Livestock Expo whiskey, straight bourbon whiskey. We picked that barrel with Chad a couple months ago. So the parents of the champion and reserve will receive a bottle of this whiskey. You can go over to Pine Bluffs Distilling. They're set up over there still serving drinks all day today. So head on over to Pine Bluffs Distilling booth, get yourself a drink before the grand drive of the breeding does, and watch an awesome set of does as we select our top 5. The champion doe will also receive a tumbler provided by Freeman Showbox, Sullivan's dealer over here.
good way to get things rounded out. And boy, am I excited to get into overall doe drive. And I think this doe that wins this particular class, I think she does still quite handily, buddy. I think that's what a heavyweight doe should look like. Stout mug, good-eared, big-footed, awesome in terms of her chest and still fresh. Good in terms of her shape and her texture right on the backside of her blade and shoulder. Obviously, maybe just getting a little plain right there to the base and the crest of her neck. But I think it still ties right. She's still long and attractive. And I just love that thing's form. I love her head and I love her ear. I think an awesome place to start. I think it's just a little bit closer after that. I thought the young lady's doe here coming next in terms of just shape and composition. Her body design and style I thought was really, really good. She's not as stout. She's not as woofy and just dense as the one that wins. But I thought in terms of look, build, balance, comfort, and flexibility, while still maintaining the right shape and the right texture up high, made her an awesome place to sit right there in two. Mid-body forward, I really like your black-headed doe, buddy. She's got the skinny, sleek neck. She's got an awesome set and laid back right there to her blade and knee. I thought she was really good in terms of the way her forerib was put together and designed. Low and back, she gets a little steep and round out of her hip. Just doesn't handle her hind leg to the surface quite as good. This thing right here is real stout as you roll on the backside, big backed and round bodied. Right here though, we just got to make that one neater looking. She's just getting a little past her prime. She's a little short and cresty in terms of her neck, protruding just too much right there to the base of her chest and sternum. But roll around the backside, she's just got more bulk. She's just got more width and power. That's why she beats the doe right here. This doe is probably fresher to the front portion of her skeleton in terms of the base and the crest of her neck. To me though, she's just the flattest one in terms of shape and forerib design. Like where she's at in terms of her pin width and her underline. Just got to give her more aggressive shape out of the backside of her blade and shoulder. Open her up in terms of her forerib. Both these goats here that are going to go ahead and round out. They just got to balance up a shot better from the side. If you guys would, give these kids a nice round of applause. Excited to get into our grand overall doe drive.
All right, we're getting close here to having our grand drive of the breeding does. We do have some overlap showmen in our next class of market ewes with some does, so just be prepared that we're going to have just a slight break here so we can get through this breeding doe drive.
For the final drive, breeding does for the final drive.
Another fun class I used to work through, and I think a really close decision amongst this top pair. They're a little different, and again, one of those pairs that if we could just push things together, I think we'd have a runaway winner. Ultimately, I think there's some differences in both of these sheep in terms of their balance, in terms of their skeleton. Step back off of them, again, ask myself, where's the bigger margin of difference? I think it's in true width of skeleton, body shape, and mass, and the young man's ewe that's going to win the class. She's a hard one to get put together whenever we're bracing her. I think whenever he shows that ewe down, corrects what her biggest flaw is, in my opinion, and that's how she manages her top line versus the 1 and 2. And I get that. And so if you sit ringside and say, hey, that blue one in second looks a little bit more your speed from the side, I wouldn't argue with you. But I still think this class winner is built incredibly good at her foundation. I think that one, even though she doesn't run uphill as good, is awesome in terms of her basic build. And to me, when you get up on top of this pair, there is no comparison. That one is so much wider wider, so much burlier in her body cavity, and that lays the groundwork for an exceptional shape. Awesome when you get in behind her. I need to pick her up in the front part of her body and naturally strengthen her spine a little bit more. That's where I really like this 1 and 2. And young man, you can get one put together as good as anybody. This one, to me, in terms of her ability to run uphill, her neck set, and how she handles her top line symmetry is more favorable. I guess when I get to this viewpoint and I study him in motion, she'll naturally drop her chest just a little bit relative to her flank. And so I don't know if she's got just a huge balance advantage. And then again, when you get up on this pair, this is where she gets beat. She's not as good in the turn of her rib. She's not as good in the shape to her back and how she progresses back to her pin bones, but a very, very good pair nonetheless. One that comes in 3, I think, gets to this point because not only is she really good from a muscularity and power standpoint, but I think that the levelness of her spine beats the 1 and 4. The build to her foundation beats the 1 and 5. Why she doesn't get up in the top pair is, to me, she doesn't hit you as hard from a look and presence standpoint. She's maybe got just a little bit more bark there over her forerib compared to the 2 right ahead of you, but that's still a very nice one to sit there in 3rd. One that comes in 3 is presented immaculately. Again, the young lady gets that one driving and presents that one extremely good from her hip forward. I want to tie into that one. She's tall fronted, good in her neck set, still got a good creasy back laid into her there. We got to change the way she's built there out of her dock. She wants to drop her pins a little bit in motion. That's a ewe that when we get behind her runs out of gas compared to the ones on either side of her. Like the width of skeleton and the power, and the one that rounds out our top 5. That's why she gets to the front line. She's better than our 4th place ewe right here out of her dock, and how she carries her width from her pin bones to her hock to the ground. We got to change her at the base of her skeleton if we're going to run her any higher. That's one that, despite the fact she's chewed a little bit of leg wool out, she's too long and weak in her rear pasterns. She gets just a little more conventional in terms of her size for me. Like that one a great deal, and you do an exceptional job getting her presented. Congratulations on another good class.
All right, we're in the grand drive of our breeding does over here. We've got Ariana Lundgren first out of our Class 1. Brooklyn Jarakowski second out of Class 1. We've got Dayton Mortweed first in Class 2. Elizabeth Alberchet is second out of Class 2. Class 3, our first place doe is Brooklyn Jaratowski. Our second place doe is Addie Cortez. Class 4, our first place, Bella Campbell. Second place, Brooklyn Jaratowski. Class 5, we have first place Brooklyn Jaratowski. Second, we have Elena Barger. Class 6, we have first place Grace Baumgartner. Second, Lily Steek. Class 7, our first place doe is Bennett Gordon. Our second is Caitlin Meckelberg. And Class 8, I don't have, give it to me. We have Dylan Pittman. And second, we have Lily Steek. We'd like to thank everybody for coming and exhibiting. We've got an awesome set of does over here. It's been a great show all weekend. We really appreciate you guys bringing high-quality stock to us this weekend. As you guys pack up and head home, we would appreciate you just maybe picking up your trash and putting it in a trash can, cleaning up your area as you leave. We got to get this building turned over and cleaned up here in just a 2-day span. So that would help us tremendously. We would really appreciate it. But thanks for joining us. Safe travels home. All right. I don't have the name of the individual, but I do have a back tag number and a number clip up here at the announcer stand. Exhibitor 523. I've got your back tag number and your number clip up here at the announcer stand. Exhibitor 523.
Well, I don't want to hold up the sheep show too much, but I think this is pretty insane. This front line and second line, I think, are very, very good. And so I want to make sure I've got my head right. I want to make sure you guys know where my head's at. And so I'm going to go through and briefly talk about some first in just a couple seconds so you guys kind of know where I'm at. I thought Class 1 really good. I thought the young lady's paint dough that won, we talked about in terms of just bulk and feature. She is big in terms of her arm and her chest, and there was just more in terms of substance down low and just more as she's got right here in terms of body shape. Out here, I got to ask myself, is there enough to her comparative to a couple others? And I think you step off, you study her from the side, and to me, I just think she's a little off, and I don't know if it's her color pattern and the way that brown blends into the backside of her neck, which to me, she just looks off and high in terms of her chine, and her neck set doesn't look just right, and maybe I question that one in terms of depth of body from chine to chest long term as things progress. We talked about Class 2, man, that was spooky, wild, and weird. This thing that wins, I think, is absolutely a bad cat from the side. I don't know if I've ever seen one that's got that big of a forearm, that waspy of a neck, that sexy of an underline, and still that punchy behind. My biggest critic and my biggest question mark on her is right there. Can I call her stout enough in terms of her jaw? Is that one generational enough and going to go home and do what she needs to? I don't know. But this view right here, if you don't get behind it and you don't get in it, hey, we probably never going to be friends, and it's as simple as that. Hey, the paint dough that was second, that thing was rank. We talked about her skull, we talked about her ear, we talked about her chest and her arm, and her feature down low being absolutely dynamic and insane. She is rolled up, ripped up, and juicy in terms of the way she feeds right there out of the backside of her blade and shoulder. We talked about it. She's a little tight right there in the center of her back. She's not as neat in terms of the way her hind leg hits the surface as the doe that went ahead and beat her. But at the end of the day, she's a gamer. She's a contender to roll into this particular top 5. This class was good. I think this doe is nice. I don't think there's just a whole lot wrong with her. I don't know if there's just a whole lot that just punches me in the face. I think she's incredibly good up front in terms of her form, her chest, her neck. I think she's broad over her loin, big in terms of her pin. Out here, though, I think maybe just reads a little flatter right there in terms of her upper cage and forerib. I didn't know if just had the waspy, the wild, and just the outlandish look of a couple others, but I certainly think that doe's very, very good. I appreciate when showmen and crews behind the scenes listen to what I got to say, because this helps this doe a lot. I was a little worried that she'd come out here and look a little fragile, look a little frail in this particular drive. She does it now. I think it matches and it fits. I really like this goat in terms of the way her skeleton's put together, her height to shoulder, elevation, her comfort level in terms of mobility is as good as any. The setback angle to her blade and knee, her length of hip and range of motion is absolutely awesome. I love her shape. I love her texture. The way she feeds out of the backside of her blade and shoulder is absolutely incredible. At the end of the day, I get that we get the extra on and it makes it look better. Study your form and study your rear foot. I still got to ask myself, is there enough genuine foundation down there to match and to play out here in this particular deal? But I'm going to tell you, picturesque from the side, that one's very, very good. We talked about this class. I think this pair was really, really tough and different. We talked about this doe winning in terms of this feature, in terms of this balance. We thought she was better, although she splays. She toes out a little up front, and she's just a little plain in terms of her neck and the base of her chest and her sternum. I still thought comparative to the doe that was second, she was sounder in terms of her knee. She was more appropriate in terms of her length of hip and just the way her hind leg hits the surface. She looks the part out here from the side. Right here again, as we talked about a couple others, I got to ask myself in terms of forerib, in terms of rib cage design? Is that one grizzly? Is that one bold enough? And can I live with the way she looks in terms of her neck and chest and where her front feet hit the surface? This doe out here, she's a real nice doe. To me, she looks like one young lady can take home. She's going to do real good. That's a stout melon, big set of running gear down low, and she is big, fat, and juicy in terms of her back. Out here, she probably looks a little general, just a little common and plain. She's the crestiest one. And so out here, I question if she's got a shot to get in the top 5. I got to say, is her throat latch good enough? Is that one's crest of her neck good enough? Is she as wild and waspy as a couple others? But in terms of this feature, in terms of bulk and density, thought that one was real good. This class right here was absolutely bad to the bone, and I've got a late flight tonight, and so I'm sure on the plane ride home, I'm going to think and talk about this class quite a bit, because I think it was so unique and so different. We talked about there was 4 absolute hammers in that particular class, and if I brought one of those 4 to the Cheyenne Livestock Expo, I was going to walk around with my chest pumped out thinking I was going to win the fair. And we talked about the problem was they were all absolutely so different, and so it made it very, very challenging. We said the one we landed on, she meshed. She blended the 3 behind her together in terms of feature, in terms of build and balance, soundness, flexibility, and genuineness. Out here, I still think that thing looks like an absolute gamer. She's got big paws. She's drop dead gorgeous from the side. Her smoothness and her balance is so good. We talked about the black-headed doe. I get it. She's not going to be everybody's speed, but man, there's just something about that thing that just gets me turned on and fired up. She is absolutely wild in terms of her body shape, and her texture up high is absolutely beautiful. I don't know if there has been a piece of livestock that has walked through the ring when I judged the ewe show or the doe show that is that genuine in terms of shape, that genuine in terms of body contour and design of rib cage. I wish she had just a little bit bigger feet, and I wish she just was a little waspier looking up front. But man, she is still jet level down her back, paints the right picture. She's moving a little better out here. Maybe got a little attitude adjustment. I think her hind leg, I'm more comfortable with it out here in this particular deal. Definitely a gamer, definitely a contender. This thing that wins the last class, I told Buddy, I like his go. Up front, she's got a beautiful head, beautiful ear, big front foot and forearm. Maybe she's a little dingier in terms of her hair comparative to a couple others, but I think in terms of feature, in terms of balance and flexibility, I thought that doe was really good. Like I said, they're absolutely wild. They're absolutely insane. That's where my head's at. I want to thank Dylan, his crew, and his family one last time for the opportunity. It's truly been an absolute blast to come here into Cheyenne. I thought the youth show yesterday was wickedly good. Hey, they told me you're only going to have 8 classes of does. I was a little nervous, but I tell you, I don't care if there was 3 classes. When they all come out in each of these classes and look like this, it's fun and it's impressive. This one will certainly be a check mark off the bucket list for me, and I'll tell you, this is the wildest and the wackiest set of does that I'm ever going to have the chance to put together, and I'd say it'll be a long while before I have the opportunity to do it again. They don't all look the same, but man, I think they're really good. I want to thank the crew back home one last time for holding down the fort. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank my mom. She's watching my dog, Scooter. I'm sure he's absolutely being a terror, but he'll have about 5 new toys and probably about 3 baths, and so he's living the good life while I'm on the road. I can't thank my parents enough. They let me live these wild and crazy dreams, and if it wasn't for them, I couldn't do it. I know there's days they want to kick me out of the house and kick me to the curb and call me crazy, but they continue to support me, and they continue to be in my corner. I can't thank them enough, and I can't thank the boys enough for continuing to support me and let me live my dreams when things get tough. They pick me up no matter what happens. They're going to make sure I'm still on top of the world, and so I can't thank them guys enough for everything they do. It's amazing when you face adversity in your life, the people that'll come into your life and the people that'll bring the Lord into your life, and it's amazing what it can do for you. I can tell you about a year ago today, I took a gigantic risk in my life, and I regretted every single day that I did it. But at the end of the day, I have become the best friends with some of the greatest guys because of that. And you'll learn, take the risk in life, kids. No matter if it works out or if it doesn't. If it doesn't work out, you're going to find your people that are going to be with you for the rest of your life. And that is the beauty of it. Hey, and if it does work out in your favor, that's absolutely awesome. But at the end of the day, you've got to take the risk. You've got to take the chance, because you'll never find the people that are going to be with you through thick and thin through this whole deal. So take the risk in life, no matter what anybody says. Hey, if you guys would, we've got a beautiful crowd around ringside. You guys need to absolutely pump it up for the kids here in Cheyenne. We're going to put together an absolutely bad to the bone set of top 5 does.
Congratulations to our champion breeding doe, exhibited by Bennett Gordon. Congratulations to our reserve champion breeding doe, Caitlin Mecklenburg. Third overall, Dayton Mortweet out of Class 2. Fourth overall goes to Elizabeth Alberchett. And fifth overall goes to Bella Campbell. Congratulations. Thank you for bringing us an awesome set of does. All right, we're ready to roll in here to our next class of market ewes.